Our lesson today is on divorce. So firstly, we'll look at the changing patterns of divorce and then look at the reason for those patterns. So you've got some key terms on the right-hand side. It's important to note the difference between divorce and separation. Sometimes people use those words interchangeably, but they mean different things. So divorce is the formal ending of marriage, so it's when you legally end your marriage, whereas separation is when couples perhaps live apart at the end of their marriage, but they're not actually legally divorced yet, so they're still legally married, they're just not living together and not in a relationship. Another key term, empty shell marriage. This is a marriage where husband and wife may be still married, but there is no love or intimacy between them. Sometimes this occurs when a couple may have children and they don't want to divorce. They want to maintain the relationship for the purpose of raising their children. So sometimes that's described as empty shell because there's nothing within the marriage, no love. So we'll be looking at first the trend. So I've got here a table. So you've got 1960 up to 2018, and you can see the overall trend has been, from the 1960s to 2018, the divorce has increased. So that's the overall trend. What do we think are the reasons for divorce? I want you just to jot down, why do you think people are divorcing more now so than in the past? And there has been a dip in divorce since 2014. You can see that the number has gone down from over 110,000 to 90,000. So why has there been a slight decrease since 2014? So next, I'd like you to type true, agree or disagree next to these statements. It's just to get you thinking really about where you stand in terms of marriage and divorce, and some of the reasons around why people may choose to get divorced. So over the next 6 slides, I'm going to take you through 6 factors that have led to more divorce since 1945. There are some challenge questions there as well that you may want to have a go at. So all you need to do for the middle column is just explain how that factor has led to more divorce. So the first reason is legal changes. So divorce was much harder to achieve in the past. So in 1857, divorce was possible to obtain if adultery could be established. So adultery, one spouse cheats on the other one. And obviously that's quite difficult to establish, especially in 1857, before emails and phones and videoing things, etc. So it was more difficult in that regard. In 1969, the Divorce Reform Act enabled people to get divorced more easily. So they could get divorced after 3 years of marriage on the grounds of irretrievable breakdown because of separation, adultery, desertion, or unreasonable behaviour. And that last one, unreasonable behaviour, is interesting because what's considered unreasonable has changed over time. In 1984, there was another divorce law, and couples had to request or petition for divorce after only 1 year of marriage rather than 3 years. So the time period was reduced, meaning that it's easier. And it's obviously resulted in more lone parent families, more reconstituted families, etc. Essentially, this reason it's made, divorce laws have made it easier and cheaper to divorce. So it's unsurprising that perhaps there are more divorces now than in the past. At the moment, there is a new divorce law, a bill going through Parliament. So this bill is, if it gets passed, will make it easier for couples to divorce. Currently, if a couple decide to divorce, one person has to provide evidence that the marriage has broken down due to the fault of their spouse. So they have to prove that their partner has done something wrong. If both partners just want to get a divorce because they just don't want to be married anymore, they have to live apart for 2 years. They have to be separated for 2 years before they can get a divorce, even if both of them want it. So this bill, if it passes, would mean that couples can divorce without having to prove that one person has done something wrong, and they won't have to wait 2 years if neither of them have done something wrong and they both want to divorce. So it will again make it much easier for couples to divorce. And it will be interesting to see in a few years' time, if the bill passes, what the impact of that law will be. Will it lead to more divorces or not? The second reason for the increase in divorce is the value of marriage. So functionalist sociologist Fletcher argues divorce has increased because people attach more value to their marriage than in the past. So what we mean by that is they're demanding higher standards from their partners. So, nowadays people, they have so much expectation around what their marriage should look like, emotionally, sexually, in terms of equality, companionship. And often, if people get married and then their expectations are not met, it's more acceptable now for them just to divorce based on that second point about unreasonable behaviour. There's much more that goes into a marriage now compared to the past, according to Fletcher. And that's why people are divorcing more, because their expectations are not being met, because their standards are perhaps sometimes too high. Thirdly, the status of women. So women's expectations have changed as a result of the improvement in their educational opportunities, career opportunities. In the past, if a woman was unhappily married to a husband, they would be financially dependent on their husband, and so would kind of be trapped in marriage. Whereas now, obviously, women are more financially independent and sometimes are perhaps breadwinners in their relationship. And so actually it's easier for women to leave an unhappy marriage. So you can link this to the Sex Discrimination Act and the Equal Pay Act that we learnt about before, because they are the acts that have led to equal status for women, and leading them to be able to get a divorce more easily. You might want to relate this. There's a challenge to us there. How has feminism had an impact? So you might want to think about that as well and have a go at answering that one. Have a look at this article. It links to what we were just talking about. What are the reasons why the status of women has led to more divorce? There's some more information there. You don't have to read the article if you don't want to, but it gives you a little bit more in-depth. It gives you some statistics there as well that might be useful. The fourth reason for the increase in divorce is changes in attitudes. I've put in the box in the top right-hand corner the key term stigma. Stigma is a strong feeling of disapproval that most people in a society have about something. And in the past, there was a strong stigma attached to divorce. It was seen as wrong and it was seen as unacceptable for people to divorce. Whereas in today's society, it's more normalised. People have different views on divorce that can actually lead to greater happiness for the individual, and people shouldn't have to stay married if they're unhappy. And you can see as well, members of the royal family have divorced, and that has made it more acceptable as well. I've got that picture there of Princess Diana and Prince Charles. So you might want to think about any other celebrity divorces that might have changed attitudes. I know that there are some celebrities that get married for 2 days. I think Britney Spears did that. I think Kim Kardashian wasn't married for particularly very long. So has that and their short marriages changed attitudes as well. Number 5, changes in society. So society has become more individualistic and focused on pursuing our own personal satisfaction. And marriage is therefore seen in the same way. If it doesn't provide personal satisfaction, then a divorce is more likely. And because our society is more individualistic, we're focusing more on ourselves and what makes us happy as individuals. And some people say that capitalism has made us like this, and that marriage has become more commercialised. And what I mean by that, with marriage being commercialised, it's all about having the perfect wedding, buying the perfect dress, buying the perfect accessories, etc., to make it all amazing and wonderful. And ultimately, it's seen as almost like a product, something that you buy to make your life better. And if it doesn't work out, you get rid of it and start again. So some of those attitudes to ourselves and our personal lives has led to an increase in divorce as well. And the last one is secularization. So again, we've done this key term before. It means the decline in religious beliefs. So religion has lost its influence in society to some extent. And people are choosing more and more to not have religious ceremonies and not to take sacred vows in front of God. And this ultimately means that people feel less guilty, I suppose, about being divorced because there's nothing to stop them really. Obviously divorce is frowned upon in many religions. And if you've not had a religious wedding and you're not a religious person, then you won't have that feeling or sense of guilt or a responsibility to God if you've not had a religious service. So I've got a couple of questions there that might, I guess, make you think about some of the issues around this. Do you think marriage is becoming less sacred? Do you think getting married in a church means that people are really religious? Or do even some people who get married in churches, do they just do it for the photographs and not actually because they are religious and believe that marriage is a sacrament? So finally, just to test our knowledge and see if we can put this into practice with an exam question, identify and explain 2 changes in society that have contributed to the increase in divorce in the UK. So you get 1 mark for correctly identifying a reason, and then you get 2 further marks for the explanation of each point. So these are obviously the 6 changes that we've just gone through. If I say 1 change to society that's contributed to the increase in divorce is secularization, and then I would go on to say what secularization is and why that means more people why more people choose to get divorced. So I would say secularization is when society is less religious. This means people are more likely to get divorced because they do not believe divorce is sinful and believe it is acceptable. And that would get me the 3 marks for the first part of the question. And I would then go on to explain a second point. So if you could send over your answer to that question and a completed table by Friday, that would be great. Any questions, then just email me. Thanks, bye.